So we have time to project activity within our university. My seminar hosts some Lakehead professor, and the other professor had participated in seminar, professor of engineering and biology. So with Lakehead, not only student, also professor has knowledge and experience in our seminar. Thank you very much, Glenda. Amigos, estamos con la Universidad de Lakehead, Canadá. Esta universidad tiene un convenio académico con San Marcos. Esta universidad ha recibido alumnos de San Marcos que han aplicado el programa ELAF, un programa del gobierno de Canadá que apoya a 8 estudiantes de San Marcos que han logrado hacer un semestre en Montreal, UQAM, St. John Memorial, que está en St. John's, Lakehead. Gracias a este programa se ha logrado el convenio académico con Lakehead, que es una universidad líder en Canadá, un país con alto nivel en educación superior. Esperemos que esta presentación fortalezca la relación entre ambas instituciones. Well, Glenda, I would like to invite to start your presentation, please.
Okay, thank you so much for the invitation. Buenos dias, muchas gracias for Professor Hector Maldonado for the invitation to present my work and our graduate program. I am Glenda Bonifacio. I am the Dean of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. I prepared some slides. I don't know if we'll be able to see this.
Yes, you can share your presentation, please.
So to share the presentation, it's the little icon that has the square with the upwards arrow. But I think I can see it now on your screen.
Okay, so
yes, we can see. We can see.
Okay. Yeah, so I like to share my work in the context of the seminar topic in terms of university and development. My work inscribes on gender, migration, and disasters. And how do we move this? Okay. How do we go to the next slide? This is my first time to use Google as a presentation. Can you see if I click? Oh.
Yes.
How can you move these slides? Oh, you presenting, annotating.
Sorry, my microphone was not. Go on your presentation where it says slideshow, and then start from the beginning.
Yeah, we may have some technical issues here.
But
happens.
But go to your presentation, not on Teams, but where you have it open.
Okay.
And you put slideshow. You click slideshow, and then start from the beginning.
Okay, can you see that?
No, now we lost your.
Not yet. Okay, so I have to share it
again. Yeah.
Again. Okay, let's see. Can you see that?
Yeah, now we see it.
Okay, so thank you so much, Pierre, for that support. Okay, let me see.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Yes, I'd like to move on to the next slide. It's still not allowing me to go to the next slide. Okay, that works. So I'd like to do a sort of 2 parts. So as Professor Hector has advised, a little bit of my work and then the graduate programs at the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. In terms of other programs and the admission and criteria, the practical side of it, we have our representative here from Lakehead University International, Pierre, who could also provide some support later for questions. So my research areas cover Australia, Canada, Japan, and the Philippines. And then I'd like to share some of my selected works related to gender and migration. And gender and migration are really key factors in development, quote unquote, critical development studies. And my work kind of intersects in these dimensions. I do work on gender, religion, and migration, gender, youth, and migration, and many other parts. But the centrality, since I'm a professor in gender and women's studies, as well as in Asian studies and political science and accidental sociologies of disaster, recently, I like to share my work on this part. This is a very important topic. I thought this would have actually been accepted mainstream, but through the years, migration is not only a very important area of study, but is also critical in terms of national policy and development. So, in terms of my work, I like to share with you that these are my publications, selected publications through the years. I've been in Canada for over 20 years. I did my PhD in Australia, and I'm originally from the Philippines. And I have felt some affinity, cultural affinity, with many of those countries that have actually been influenced by Castilian, by Spanish colonization and attempts to claim national sovereignty in the process. So my work in Canada recently works on the transnational identities. So Pinay on the Prairies is the first book on the western provinces in Canada. Usually the traditional centers for migration is Montreal, Toronto, and Vancouver. So this work was the first one to deal with the western provinces. That includes Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. My other works that has been edited and co-edited with colleagues around the world. So my area is really looking into the local and global dimensions of topics, and we embark on many of these new streams, or let's say talk about topics, but has not really been published or written about. So feminism and migration really is the first book on this topic, looking at cross-cultural engagements, and we have contributors from north, south, east and west, so in this collection. And my work here centers on feminism and migration, whether when in gender migration, whether when people migrate or when women migrate to different countries, has there been some sort of advocacy in terms of the rights, how they're able to fight or negotiate within limited structures and experiences of racism and discrimination, and how they're able to use cultural, I think, values to embed in a different context of destination communities. The other work that I'm involved with in the past is about rural migration. So again, at the time when this was published by Routledge, this was one of the first to look into the realities of gender and rural migration, the conflict that goes with it in terms of gender identities, display, I think, migration trends, mobilities, and the change in the process. So again, this was a product of collaboration with different colleagues in the world. So many of them, I would have some of this content from Brazil, from other parts in the world. The other aspect that I'd like to share with you in the context of gender and migration really is the different intersecting factors that goes along with understanding flows of migration from a gendered perspective. Like, as we all know, there are different movements of men in terms of destination and different movements for women. In the case of Filipino migration, which really is my focus of work in Australia, Canada, and Japan, is that the Filipino migration is highly gendered. Over 50% of those are female led compared to other patterns in the world where usually men leave out and the women follows. So the one of the book we wrote for that we edited and worked on is on youth migration. This includes students, the international student movement, the youth in refugees camps, displaced youth. So these are, I think, again, contributions from different scholars in the world, divided into different, I think, themes, the on subjectivities and modalities of gendered youth migration. So these are global perspectives. Now, in terms of religion and migration, this is, I think, one of my first collaboration with a colleague in the United States on how religion is used as a pathway for integration among diverse groups of immigrants in destination countries. So, for the most part, of Filipinos is the Philippines is the only Catholic Christian country in Asia, and most of those who migrate have affinity to Catholicism and Christianity. And in other contexts and in other works in this, we also have how Muslims, for example, are able to navigate, using religion to actually integrate in their host community. So these are examples of my work, and we have. The first time, sorry, the first work on immigration in small cities is this book, Canadian Perspectives on Immigration in Small Cities. This covers temporary foreign workers, students, and experiences in small cities that's classified to be less than 100,000 population in Canada, with my colleague from the University of Calgary, Professor Julie Droulet. In terms of the disaster, as I said, I'm a recently sociologist of disasters, an accidental sociologist, and as I said, I originally from the Philippines, and my home city, Tacloban City, was destroyed by Super Typhoon Haiyan. It was the strongest typhoon ever recorded to hit landfall in my city. It destroyed 90% of the infrastructure, and that experience, personal experience, was critical to how I actually approach my scholarship and research. And the migration that's actually been more focused into the labor migration has expanded to migration in the context of displacement. So in terms, this is the first book, edited work with my graduate student, Roxana Epi, on disasters in the Philippines before and after Haiyan. And when we did this work, I had my research in three islands in the Philippines. I'm my graduate student. I had research as well in another region in the Philippines. At that time, looking into how one of the world's most at-risk countries, like the Philippines, you would actually expect that there would be many works written about disasters in the Philippines. It turned out to be very few. And in this work, we have engaged with local scholars who are knowledgeable about the experiences of disasters and policy, rehabilitation, management, etc., as opposed to being simply a source of scholars from the West, or let's say West, like Canada, US, collaborating or kind of collaborating with them and producing the publication on their own, without providing much voice from the local scholars. So this work is more or less what I say, my contribution to decolonizing knowledge. Decolonizing means that the source of knowledge is diverse, and local scholars like Philippines who may not have the access to publication or venues for publication works collaboratively, for example, with me, and then they did the work in terms of presenting their work or publishing their work in this collection. So it is my hope that local scholars anywhere in the world, when they actually collaborate with scholars coming from developed countries or economically developing countries like Canada, for example, are given an opportunity to write or give a voice to what's really happening in their communities. So this is my humble contribution in the context of disasters in the Philippines. Now, disasters are kind of classified into two. You have disasters caused by human-induced disasters like war, could be epidemic, could be fire brought by arson. Also, disasters caused mostly as reported by natural hazards. So they call it natural disaster, but there's really no natural in a disaster. It's in the context of the vulnerability of communities to respond to natural hazards, and preparedness and ability to be able to be back into its normal or average uh, daily let's say activities after the post disasters. So disasters now is occurs anywhere. Today we are talking in this platform, maybe next or how many hours or whatnot, somewhere in the world, experiencing different forms of disasters. And disasters are, as I again include war, displacement, and etc. In my the in the context of disaster per se, there's a really a global body that really tracks. We have the Internal Displacement Monitoring Center, and you can check on the link for the latest report. And in terms of the displacement of people in the world, 2023, in terms of conflict and violence, is it's about 68 million displaced. The highest is in Sudan per country per capita, and then Syria at 7.2 million, Democratic Republic of Congo 6.7 million, 5.1 million in Colombia, 4.5 million in Yemen, and 35.7 million in other countries. In terms of disasters, these are internally displaced people. They are still within the borders of their country, so they have not reached another country to that point. So these are internal displacement. For the global displacement in terms of war, this is over 100 million. There is a live data feed from IDMC to track on this. And I'm sure that in Peru, you may have also the numbers that looks into displacement based on disaster, conflict, and violence. So for disasters, displacement in terms of disasters, displacement, in other words, you have actually moved from one area and you could actually be displaced, for a long time. This is per year reporting. So in 2023, 7.7 million people were displaced in the world. 1.5 million from Afghanistan, 1.2 million from Pakistan, 881,000 Ethiopia, and the rest Turkey and China. Okay, let's see where. So my area, as I said, on average, there are about 20 typhoons that hit the Philippines, and it's kind of the culture of migration is really part of the consequence because of areas that has been ravaged by drought, or areas where there's not much economic opportunities. So, as I said, the Philippines is one of the top 10 countries in the world for at risk because of the occurrence of natural hazards and the inability of the government to provide that much support in terms of post-disaster reconstruction rehabilitation. In terms of violence, for 16 years, you have about 3.5 million displaced. And recently in 2024, 123,000 displaced for 1 year. So in terms of disasters in a 16-year period, 71.2 million were displaced. And at the 16-year data, official data that's reported, 732 were disaster events. And so on average, you may have 45 disaster events per year. Now, my work sets on displacement, migration, and disasters that's really interconnected using a gendered lens. There is a human face to migration, there's a human face to disaster, and then a human face to poverty, etc. Now, the second half of my presentation is with regards to the graduate programs of the Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanities. So for undergraduate programs, we have 12 programs with 12 departments and three programs in one department. For example, interdisciplinary studies has three programs that covered criminology, media, film, and communication, and interdisciplinary studies. Since they're more interested in the graduate programs at my faculty, Social Science and Humanities, we have four. First, we have the MA English and Cultural Studies. For each of these graduate programs, we have a graduate coordinator. So the first point of contact, if they have questions, would be to contact Dr. Daniel Hanna at the Department of English. It's easy. You can connect with the website. You can find the email address. And for English and Cultural Studies, one of the key features of the program is that you could include creative writing as an option in the MA program. In other words, if you are very good in, let's say, writing a novel or poetry, some of this creative writing is part of an option in the program. So you can see that it's really more closely knit programming with having small seminars. And because Lakehead University has two campuses, Thunder Bay in northern Western Ontario and Aurelia in southern Ontario, two campuses, the students would have the ability to choose, which of these campuses would work for them. And this program has a specialization in either social justice studies or gender and women studies. And of course, there are so many avenues for employment or trajectory after finishing the graduate program in English and cultural studies. We have a master's in history, and the contact person is Dr. Palavidas. So it looks into um, various regions. You have the Americas, Europe, and Asia. Dr. Palavidas is an expert in world history and Asian history too. And we have three streams under this program: thesis-based, research project, or coursework. So again, the history program for the undergraduate program in history is one of the undergraduate programs that students can complete online. For the 2 years master's program, this is a highly interesting times that really students would really have to kind of be aware of what's going on around the world, because today is a history tomorrow. Okay, one of our popular programs is a Master's in Social Justice Studies. The contact person for this program is Dr. Kevin Brooks, and this really looks into the myriad ways students, in terms of the social justice focus, uh, varied in terms of the environment, government, governance in society, includes indigenous communities, immigrant communities, diverse communities in different places that if students are interested to work on. There's a flexibility in the programming with 4 streams and could be achieved in 3 to 6 semesters. Now, the program offers a path that's flexible too, that after degree, students could proceed to a PhD, law, and nonprofit organization. So many of our international students uh, are interested to focus on social justice studies that actually connects well what's going on in different parts of the world. Now, the fourth is the sociology is a master's in sociology. The contact person is Dr. Barbara Parker. And again, we have a course-based thesis, course-based option, and a thesis option for the program. You can add, a student could add a specialization in gerontology, gender and women's studies, or social justice studies. Again, this is a very kind of smaller cohort, smaller classes with faculty in Department of Sociology as well as other affiliated faculty in different specialization to work on. So students would have the ability to engage in both qualitative and quantitative research methods and community-based learning opportunities in Thunder Bay or in the Aurelia campus. There's also opportunities for students to proceed for a PhD or some other options if they would like to do not the academic route. We have a specialization that runs across the four programs, the four master's programs, and a specialization in gender and women's studies. This is a very important area of work since if you follow the UN Sustainable Development Goals, gender equality, gender equity, and sensitivity to gender and intersectionality is important to actually drive growth in all areas in a sustainable development goal. So poverty per se, without understanding the intersectionalities of politics, environment, etc., is incomplete. It's an incomplete understanding of what's happening. So a specialization in gender women studies is very important to look into. The contact person is Dr. Laurie Chambers for now. She is also the chair of the Department of Gender and Women Studies. The specialization runs in combination with other disciplines. As I said, English, sociology, social justice studies, but also connects with education, the Faculty of Education, and then psychology, as well as social work. So again, this has a very supportive cohort that alongs the way, and diversity of these different programs allows students to kind of look into uh, particularly feminist theories and methods in understanding, data and analysis. Okay, so that wraps up my presentation for the Faculty of Social Science and Humanities graduate program and my area of work. So that's still part of my ongoing work. At present, I am engaged with other scholars in island countries, Philippines, Japan, Indonesia, Fiji, Vanuatu, and others, to look into the waste, gender and global waste in island communities. So muchas gracias. Thank you so much for the time, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Glenda. Uh, well, the seminar in the past has a Philippine scholar, Professor Linda Lumayang. Linda worked in Philippines but worked in Malaya University. So this experience, migration, work, and gender, is a global experience. In this moment, for example, South America, Peru live the Venezuelan migration. 1 million people live in Peru in the last 5 years. No, in the 20th century, no, in the Peruvian history, there's the first big migration. We can, in the past, no, in the beginning, the early modern history could be seen about the Spanish migration or African migration for the slave. or Chinese migration in middle 19th century for the coolies, okay, but this migration is 100,000 people, never 1 million, millions, more than 1 million in 10 years, in 5 years. It's uh, a special experience for Venezuelan, but also for Peruvian society. So the risk and the will live and transition, no, is a global climate change, and at the same time an economic transition to the natural resource, no, the hydrocarbons, the oil, no, resource to the natural renewable resource. We live and transition to the uh, cars, drones, boats, automats. We live and transition to the intelligent artificial. So this transition at the same time produce risk. No, there are risks in this transition. We can see, yes, a war, yes, earthquake, no, produce several problems for the local population, but this transition to the new resource, to the new, to the artificial intelligence and robots, yes, this change produce fears in population, especially in the South population, no, for the work, for the well, in this new technology could be my work, my manual work, not necessary in the north. No, so this no, the new technology and the risk and the social risk. At the same time, we have another topic is the old people. In the 20th century, we see increased population, China, Africa, etc. But in 21st century, we live the marriage, the people decide not have baby. It's very small, the young people, and increase the old people. So in 21st century, we can see some country with the uh, hundreds million the old people, but at the same time, these old people has a healthy people. It's different to be old in the 20th century and the 21st century, and these old people would like to work, would like to continue to work in university, in the enterprise, but our law established, no, you need to retire, no, you need to former worker in the 60, 65, or 70. So we live, and in this moment, no, the people, the countries has some challenge. Yes, the old challenge for the wars and the earthquakes, no, and natural disaster, but at the same time, we have some challenge for our technological and no, development. So in this challenge for the people, for the society, what is your approach? No, you are social scientist, you work migration, you work the risk, but in this area, no, the risk for the this transition produce fear and risk for the local communities, common people. What is your approach?
That's a very heavy question. They have identified the use of artificial intelligence in terms of technology. They also identified the aging population and then the healthy aging population. Then you have the young people and different transition that happens in the communities, as well as the fear. Now, if you know, in social science and humanities, this is an important time to assert assert the value of social science and humanities, because if there, even in the so-called development or of artificial intelligence, the creation of artificial intelligence really connects with the social sciences and humanities. And many of those that are actually been transformed looks into the human connections with technology. So I think you're familiar that many of those creators, many of those apps, or let's say applications that reduces, makes it easier to find sort of answers, etc. Behind the technology really is the creation, the creative and innovative spirit. And those skills came from social science and humanities. So writing, understanding about social connections, communication, etc. In a society where we have a rising aging population, and then as well access to services that allows people to be healthier, it's really not a general kind of view. In depending on the community, depending on the country, depending on the access to services, we also have many people who are aging, who do not have access to medical care, have no access to a doctor, cannot buy the medicine. So that's really the large part of the world. The fewer section in the population that has access to better health care, a doctor, of that, is really smaller compared to the majority of the people who do not have access to the same sort of level or quality of care as those who have it. Unless, in countries, for example, where you have socialized, more understanding in terms of the marginalization of various sectors, to have particular programs so that they will have access to that. So it boils down to the social welfare, the public welfare policies of governments, or local governments for that matter. My approach with all of this going on in the world, our communities, migration, migration is a human right. That to travel, to be able to live, one place and go to another in support of my aspiration to dream, have my potential to be realized, is a basic human right. So if, for example, in a location where there's not much economic opportunity, we set out, we leave and look for another place where we could actually use our skills and get higher, perhaps, output value for the skills that we, exchange with. On the other hand, there are also many of those who may want to leave, but they cannot do so, and and have to work in these communities. I'm not saying that everybody would have to leave and find opportunities, but rather that in our own context, in a time when the world is so much closer because of technology, the ability to be able to connect with you in Peru, wherever you are, in Mexico, for example, is the technology. So there are positive uses of technology in terms of building communication, building network, using, the local resources for others. So there are various uses in terms of the new technology, but that technology should not replace the human labor. It should not replace, for example, to train nurses, or to train our students to be in a field. We still need doctors. We still need nurses. Just because you could create a robot to actually care for somebody in hospital doesn't mean that you are going to hire less nurses. Or just because today uh, there's so much interest in terms of, let's say, one particular area like extractive, like mining or engineering, doesn't mean that we all go to that area because it's popular, it's in demand. In the whole scheme of things, the value from which the different disciplines, social science and humanities, for example, political science, philosophy, languages, visual arts, music, so the whole range of social science and humanities is really important, more important at this time when people, whether you're older, you're young, or in between, we need all of these skills and all of these opportunities to actually make us more human. Like, in other words, our resiliency against disasters, our resiliency against war, our resiliency against this really boils down to the human spirit. How that human spirit has engaged in different communities, like for example, if they're from Peru, from Philippines, so how they're able to use the cultural value, like perhaps understanding of the role of people in the environment, and the understanding of governments relative to people. We need social science and humanities, as much as we need the science, engineering, and other stuff, what they call the STEM, like we also need them. But it does not put one over another. The valuing of our contribution in social sciences and humanities in terms of advocating for a change in policy, in terms of research, in terms of providing evidence based research, you know, we need to cultivate that scholarship in local universities. Our students, our faculty, the university would need to have a leverage that skills, leverage that specialization, expertise to say to the government, to say to this, that this is what we should be doing to transform our society. So your question is really so complex. I don't know if I really answered that question to you, but if we are challenged by an aging population, there's also many dynamics about why population, has lesser 1% population growth. And in many countries in the West, economically developing countries, population growth is attributed by migration. So in other words, if there would be no immigrants coming to a country, it's zero population growth, So they really depend on foreign workers, foreign this to fill in that, because by and large, the whole society has some issues in terms of gender, in terms of providing support for childcare, for gender sensitive policies in companies. So instead of letting women say, after, for example, in Japan, that there is still a practice where when you get when you give birth or when you're married, you're supposed to leave work and don't come back. In other words, so many of the women will not actually, after having this career for maybe last 10 or so many years, wouldn't want to give up their job simply because I'm going to give birth to a child. So those are some of the questions that looks deeper into what are the structures in place in our society that delimits many of these to actually grow or respond to these challenges. So yeah, that is my response to a very loaded question. But it's
Thank
good.
you, Glenda. Thank you. Well, uh, our students, Caroline Zambrano, the law student, has a semester in Lakehead University. His her experience in your university was excellent. She before your university, take a semester in Bologna University, the oldest university in Europe, and then in Lakehead. Well, in the beginning, no, to see this is a Canadian university, of course. He was a surprise. She surprised to university take care of the students. University very sensitive for each student. This very different with the other university. I this experience is shared in our community, our university. So in Canada, we have some very special experience with Lakehead University.
Thank you.
Well, it's a distance between Thunder Bay and Lima. How many times the Thunder Bay to Ontario? In by car or by fly? No, the Ontario, Toronto to Thunder Bay.
Oh,
The distance, 1
the
hour.
Thunder Bay campus and Aurelia campus are both in the same province of Ontario. So the distance from Toronto
Toronto,
to Thunder Bay by plane is 2 hours.
2
If you're going
hours.
to drive from Toronto to Thunder Bay, it will be like 15 hours drive.
Okay.
Aurelia campus is closer to Toronto. So Toronto and Aurelia is like over an hour drive by car. So there's no flight. So Toronto is the major city, is the capital here in Ontario, and Thunder Bay is in the north of Toronto, and then Aurelia campus is in the south, closer to Toronto.
Well, in the seminar had participated directors de Montreal, Quebec or Montreal had participated, Professor de Simon Fraser in the British Columbia, participate the British Columbia University. Some Canadian university has participated in our seminar, and director shares the research and the academic opportunity. So I would like, Glenda, do you know Lima? Do you know South America?
South America, yes. I went to Brazil and Argentina.
We
South
has
America, not
we
Peru
have
yet. No.
we has agreement with the Sao Paulo University, Campinas University.
Yes.
Our student takes some semester in Sao Paulo, Minas Gerais, Campinas. No, we have some experience in Brazilian university, also in Argentina, in Universidad de Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Well, St. Mark has 400 years old. Yes, it's a long history, but at the same time, it's a few experience with the another university, special Canadian university. The work is for the young. Our student, your student will be the leaders. The Canada will be the leaders of Peru. As professor, as school is a mandatory, no, work for the young. No, it's difficult, yes, but we can think how to develop this content, no, how to develop this change, no. We can project seminar. For example, you can be in Lima and develop a seminar here in Lima for not only for San Marcos University, but for the, no, in general, no, Peruvian academic community, immigration and social science. It could be a big opportunity for the Lakehead and youth faculty to present, no, the different opportunity. At the same time, know the research about the social science in Lakehead. So we had time. We had time. 26, 27. My city in 10 years celebrate 500 years of foundation. Lima, no? Lima, capital of Peru, was foundation in 50, 60, 50, 35. In 10 years, we celebrate 500 years. So, yes, it's our university's distance. Yes, Peru has a public program scholarship. The student, not only the SECMAR, no, any Peruvian university apply this program to study in foreign countries. We have contact with the CALDO. No, CALDO is a Canadian organization. No, CALDO integrate. CALDO held different Canadian university, and CALDO present each year different Canadian university in St. Mark. So the idea is the idea is to at this experience we can see another activities to develop this relationship within Peruvian higher education and Canadian higher education. So the English and the skill to the foreign language is common for the total student, sing in Europe, sing in States, but Canada is a good opportunity to develop higher graduate and postgraduate programs.
Yes, I agree.
I remember Peruvian in Montreal is a head international relationship in Montreal. No, it's a girl that work in Iquitos, in Peruvian Amazonia. Now it's living in Canada. No? So Canada is a country in 20th century, in 21st century, open to the migration. Yes, in this moment, we know. In this moment, we know there are difficult, but I think this is a moment in this process, no? Because we need workers, no? We need skilled workers in different countries, different activities, no? Yes, we know, no? In this moment could be difficult for the cutting budget, difficult to cutting number of the foreign student, but this is only a moment, no? The projection is increase these international contacts. This is projection, no?
That's very good for your university to actually be more active in pursuing international collaboration. So students, faculty, research, and then sharing the work like this medium. We have the technology, Zoom or Google Meet or any other form that actually connects, different universities around the world. So it's an important indication that if you could develop, my faculty is, we have the Department of Indigenous Learning as well. So many of our students, I think they went to, last year, they have exchange too in Mexico. And then the other one, they went on a field course in, I forgot the country. It's, maybe it could have been Peru.
Glenda, Pierre, I would share an experience. We have a Zoom and Meet lecture with a professor of Auckland, New Zealand. Auckland is distant to Peru, but we can have a specific hour to connect both countries, New Zealand and Peru.
Yes.
So if we can connect New Zealand and Peru, we can connect all the world. Not problem, really.
And what's the university in New Zealand?
The Auckland University.
Oh, Auckland.
The Auckland University. I'm professor in the early modern history. He researched about the first in the Middle Age. Well, Glenda, we can think about to continue in this area. For example, my university the principal place in capital, but at the same time, my university had place in Amazonia, Central Amazonia, highlands in a mining place, and the coast. In the coast in Guarmey is a port, the central coast of Peru, Chancay, a port, central coast of Peru, and Chilca. Chilca is near the thermoelectrics. So for a student, for an student from your university or your faculty, the Amazonian experience could be very important in the cultural approach, anthropology, or linguistic. Yes, Brazil has several universities in Amazonia, but if you request to Sao Paulo University, it has a place in Amazonia, no. But my university has a place in Amazonia. So could be opportunity to students from your faculty to has experience in Amazonia society. Not only the Peruvian society in Amazonia, but the original people, original nation in Amazonia. Second, in the highlands, we have a place in Ollón. Ollón is a mining place in North Lima. The mining, this is a special relationship with the community, with the society, the extraction, the waste, etc. So for a student, the social policy, social science will be very interested in this connection between the enterprise and the society in a
Thank you
mining
so much,
zone.
Hector. Thank you so much for the time. I have another meeting. So
Okay.
in the university,
Pierre,
and Pierre
yes.
is here, so Pierre can have questions. If you have relation to other admission, etc., Pierre is here with me. Thank you so much for the invitation for this seminar.
Thank
Thank
you,
you,
Dr.
Glenda, for the
Bonifacio.
time. Please, amigos, amigas, pueden prender su cámara, please, Glenda, 1 minute. Pueden prender su cámara para tomar una captura de la sesión, por favor.
He
Daniel
wants
o
to
Ever,
take a
please.
picture. Just hold on a
Yes.
sec with the group, Glenda.
Yes. Pueden prender su cámara un momento, por favor. Wait a minute. Ok. Gracias, profesor Luis. Amigos, amigas, pueden prender su cámara un momento. Bien. Daniel, por favor, haz una captura de la sesión. Daniel o Ever, pueden hacer una captura de la sesión, me indican.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Glenda, Pierre, I will send message. Okay, muchas gracias a todos. Estamos en contacto.
I can stay on for a few minutes. Puedo quedarme unos minutos si hay algunas
Okay, sí,
preguntas
Pierre.
específicas. Sí.
Pierre, muy importante para nosotros, ¿cuál sería la experiencia de tu universidad con países de Sudamérica, no?
Sí, claro. Bueno, primeramente, gracias por las palabras bonitas de Lakehead y las experiencias que han tenido algunos estudiantes de ELAP. A los que no saben, ELAP es Emerging Leaders in the Americas. Es un programa del gobierno de Canadá que paga para que un estudiante de América Latina, cualquier país de América Latina que tengan acuerdos como los que nosotros tenemos con San Marcos, va a hacer un cuatrimestre en Canadá. Entonces, eso es una oportunidad. Nosotros somos parte de una red semejante a Caldo que mencionaste, pero tal vez un poco más pequeña. Se llama Calareo y básicamente es para buscar oportunidades de movilidad y de becas y de financiamiento en investigación con el grupo de universidades canadienses de Calabeo y universidades de América del Sur. Entonces está Lakehead, lo está liderando Lakehead ahora, pero está también la Universidad de Carleton en Ottawa, está Memorial University of Newfoundland en Terranova.
Con esa universidad también hemos tenido alumnos que han estado en esa universidad, en
Muy
memoria.
bien. Sí, sí, porque a través de estos acuerdos también son abiertos para estancias de inmigración. Está York University en Toronto, está Thompson Rivers University en la Columbia Británica y Vancouver Island University en Columbia Británica también. Entonces tenemos, a través de este consorcio hemos tenido acercamiento. Mencionaron en Brasil también. Un poco en la Facultad de Enfermería hemos tenido proyectos de investigación con la Universidad de Sao Paulo y que funciona bastante.
En el
Tenemos con la
seminario habló la directora de Medicina Preventiva, justamente este año
ok.
pasado, en diciembre, sí nos compartió su experiencia.
Y también la Universidad de Buenos Aires que mencionaste. De hecho, tenemos en nuestra Facultad de Negocio un profesor que es egresado de la Universidad de Buenos Aires y habla, bueno, obviamente español. Y aunque no tenemos acuerdos formales, pues ha participado en eventos en América Latina. Nosotros les puede interesar también en Lakehead, estamos muy vinculados con las poblaciones indígenas del norte de Ontario. Somos parte de otro consorcio en Canadá de las universidades que tienen un alto porcentaje de estudiantes indígenas. Entonces, y con México hemos hecho mesas redondas y conferencias anuales con las interculturales en México. Una red, la última fue en octubre del 2024 con la Universidad Veracruzana en Jalapa. Entonces también es un punto de intersección con Perú porque...
Pierre, te comparto que justamente el 23 y 24 de mayo se organizó un evento con la Universidad Veracruzana.
La
con
Feria del Libro.
El Instituto de Investigación Históricos Sociales, el profesor Rogelio de la Mora, dirigió un grupo de investigación y estuvo aquí en la universidad. Varios, 10 ponentes de la Veracruzana acá, de Jalapa, sí. Jalapa Enríquez.
Jalapa, sí, exacto. Y estuvieron 10 universidades en Jalapa con la Veracruzana en octubre, que tienen interés de Canadá, que tienen intereses en todos los temas de educación superior indígena. Y en el norte de Ontario es un área minero con muchas empresas mineras activas en América Latina, y Lakehead es como un pilar para el desarrollo sustentable y el involucramiento con las comunidades indígenas y la extracción responsable, ¿verdad? Bueno, la responsabilidad social corporativa. Entonces, eso también
esa experiencia
es
sería muy importante en Perú.
Nosotros es a través de nuestro departamento de geología, entonces, que ven todos los ciclos de las mineras. Entonces, es otro... De hecho, una profesora hizo durante el COVID, hizo una presentación con la Universidad Científica sobre el tema, pero nosotros, bueno, con mucho gusto podríamos ver si podemos hacer algo semejante en este campo. Y
bien,
bueno, me da
esta
gusto
experiencia con la Universidad Peruana es muy importante para nosotros. La idea sería fortalecer esta experiencia pensando en los alumnos y ver la programación, ¿no? Estamos hablando del año 25 o el año 26. ¿Cuál es más probable en tu experiencia?
Bueno, depende de qué tipo de colaboración, pero bueno, por ejemplo, hay algunos programas de movilidad que tienen financiamiento, entonces hay ciertos plazos. pero bueno, nuestro calendario académico para los estudiantes corre de septiembre a diciembre y luego de enero a abril. Pero también, bueno, a veces organizamos conferencias como lo que usted hizo hoy. Y bueno, si hay una conferencia sobre un tema, mencionó pues la parte humanística, ¿no? En la conferencia, la doctora, pues ella podría ser un buen tema.
Sí, por supuesto.
Y mencionó también, bueno, literatura. Pues también tenemos la doctora Batia Stolar, que es investigadora de México, pero bueno, tiene muchos años en, en Lakehead y ahora es vicepresidente adjunta de investigación para toda la universidad, pero ella tiene un background um, sobre literatura, ¿no? Y bueno, San Marcos tiene el premio Nobel de Literatura, que se acaba de morir, Mario Vargas Llosa, que estuvo en la universidad, entonces yo creo que podría ser un tema muy interesante también en lo de ciencias sociales. Pero
Por
bueno, yo veo
supuesto.
muchas posibilidades, ¿no? Entonces,
Sí,
uh,
muy atentos a estos profesionales que has compartido, que tienen experiencia, que son de origen latino y también han tenido experiencia en Perú. Esta experiencia será muy importante para fortalecer esta relación interinstitucional. Tu español es,
es mexicano.
sí, entiendo que tienes una experiencia latinoamericana muy fuerte y en tu experiencia has estado en Perú.
Sí, yo hago un poco de todo en la Universidad de Lakehead, pero mi base es en la Ciudad de México. Y pues una de las actividades también es vamos a visitar para actividades de reclutamiento en las escuelas preparatorias. Bueno, de haberlos conocidos antes, los visitaba. Estuve a principios de abril en Lima y en Arequipa, visitando como 10 días.
Hay tiempo,
Sí,
hay tiempo.
sí.
Eso
Vamos a
hay tiempo
regresar.
para
Sí,
sí, para poder que visites Lima y compartas, ¿no? La proyección de Lakehead a nuestra comunidad universitaria.
sí.
Bien, Pierre.
Definitivamente los
Sí,
visito la próxima vez y pues yo no soy académico, digamos, pero puedo apoyar para que un académico vaya también, ¿no? A hacer.
sí, Caldo, te comparto que es de gestión universitaria y como gestión hace su presentación periódicamente en
Sí.
Perú y en San Marcos, ¿no? Entonces,
Conozco a Rodrigo
esta,
muy bien, que es Rodrigo,
ya,
¿no?
sí, esta red a la cual Caldo, Lakehead pertenece, por supuesto, ¿no? En
Sí,
realidad,
claro.
las universidades se organizan en redes y la red presenta, también la universidad presenta sus oportunidades y no es raro, ¿no? Estar acompañado por un académico de esa universidad, sí.
Sí. Sí, en Canadá la educación es descentralizada, es un poder de las provincias. Hay 10 provincias y 3 territorios, cada uno con su departamento de educación, su ministerio de educación. Y al gobierno federal sí apoya mucho con dinero y a veces programas como ELA para los estudiantes, pero digamos, no, la educación no es del gobierno federal. Entonces, desde el punto de vista de países de América Latina, a veces es un poco confuso, ¿no? Porque no está centralizado. Entonces, trabajamos con las provincias y a través de consorcios a nivel nacional. Hay Caldo con Rodrigo, que es muy activo. Hay Calareo también, nosotros somos más pequeños. Hay las asociaciones de universidades de Canadá. Y también está el Consejo de Ministros de Educación de Canadá. Todos ellos tienen papel y trabajan entre sí. Y como el 90 y más por ciento de las universidades en Canadá son públicas, pues hay menos competencias entre universidades y tratamos de trabajar conjuntamente, de cooperar. Aún con Caldo hemos hecho eventos, tenemos pláticas.
Bueno, Pierre, muy atentos a que puedas visitar Lima, compartir la experiencia de Lakehead y también, ¿por qué no?, la red en la que Lakehead está integrada, y aprovechando tu visita, estar atentos que un profesor de Lakehead, ¿no?, esté también compartiendo su investigación. Con varias universidades ha habido varias intervenciones de directores, ¿no?, de laboratorio, departamentos, pero
Ahora
en
se me
general
ocurre,
los alumnos, sí,
perdón la interrupción, pero el doctor Michael Hawksman habla muy bien español. Él era el decano de educación y en todos temas de inteligencia artificial, de educación y de en comunicación, cómo utilizar todos los medios sociales. Es muy bueno y habla muy bien español, le encanta viajar a América Latina. Entonces es otra
su
posibilidad.
experiencia sería decisiva. Su experiencia sería decisiva. ¿Estamos hablando para el año 25 o para el año 26?
Bueno, cuando
Según tu
haya
experiencia.
oportunidad, no, pero sí necesitamos, digamos, planificar con algo de tiempo para conseguir fondos, ¿no? Normalmente.
Correcto. La
Pero
universidad, su
estar
año
en
académico
contacto.
empieza el año académico de la universidad empieza en marzo, el primer semestre acaba en julio, 10, 12 de
Sí,
julio, el segundo semestre empieza fin de agosto y se extiende hasta la primera semana de diciembre. Esas
sí.
son las actividades académicas. Hay dos, no hay actividades académicas, agosto, fin de julio, agosto y enero, febrero, pero sí hay actividades de extensión, ¿no?, de extensión que hacen las facultades hacia la comunidad, hacia alumnos de cursos de extensión, tanto en julio, agosto como en enero, febrero. Todo el año la universidad está activa y está muy atenta a las experiencias que se puedan presentar, ¿no?
Muy bien.
Entonces, pensando en la programación de Lakehead, ya sea el 25 o 26, estamos atentos a su visita.
Sí, 25, 26 está muy bien, pero por ejemplo, el programa del gobierno de Canadá de ELAP para los estudiantes, eso ya cerró en marzo.
Sí,
No sé si han
sí.
participado, pero los estudiantes, ahora está el comité de selección y se anuncian los resultados a finales de junio para participar en un cuatrimestre en Canadá, ya sea en septiembre o enero, ¿no? Entonces, la próxima convocatoria va a ser como para 26, 27.
En el caso de Lab, periódicamente se envían 8 alumnos, ¿no? 8 alumnos son aprobados por parte de San Marcos año tras año y ellos ya eligen el primer o segundo semestre. En ese sentido, previo a esta convocatoria de Lab 26, ¿no?, hacer visible la propuesta de Lakehead sería importante.
De acuerdo.
Bien, Pierre, ante todo, un gusto de haber compartido contigo, también con la doctora Glenda. Y Filipinas es un país particularmente cercano. Hay algunos amigos en Filipinas, académicos. Bueno, es una región Asia Sudoriental inmensa, dinámica y de gran desarrollo, muy cercana, Asia Sudoriental. En el seminario han participado profesoras de Gadamada, que está en Indonesia, de Alinggar, que está en Indonesia, la zona oriental, y de Bainus, que está en Yakarta, además de Malaya University o el tecnológico de Nanyang, que está en Singapur. Bien,
Muy bien.
entonces con Canadá estamos atentos a poder cultivar esta relación, especialmente con Lakehead, y estamos en contacto.
Sí, dejé mis datos para todos en el chat, entonces,
Sí, amigos, amigas, están las referencias de Sven, que es coordinador del eje para México y América Latina, está en el chat para mayores comunicaciones. Y Pierre, estamos en contacto.
Muchísimas gracias a usted, doctor Maldonado, y a todos por participar. Espero verlos en persona pronto.
Sí, por supuesto. ¿Qué mes recomiendas visitar Lakehead?
Bueno, Lakehead es hermoso, sobre el lago superior. Obviamente es frío en el invierno, se puede venir en el verano canadiense, que es junio, julio, agosto. Eso es bueno, pero es hermoso. Hay un bosque del tamaño de Francia, hay auroras boreales, hay el lago más grande del mundo. Es un ambiente, una ciudad mediana con un ambiente familiar. Y estamos a 40 minutos de la frontera con Minnesota, Estados Unidos. Pero si le
Correcto.
gusta la nieve y el frío, pues también puede ver. Bienvenidos en diciembre, enero, cuando tengan sus vacaciones. Pueden ir a esquiar o a patinar.
Muy bien. Bien, amigos, amigas, un gran saludo. Ahora en el mes de junio, justo Lakehead cierra la actividad de mayo. En el mes de junio tenemos la Universidad de Bolonia, la Universidad de Sao Paulo, la Universidad de Dresden. Estamos listos a compartirles los enlaces. Muchas gracias, Pierre, por tu tiempo. Un gran saludo a tu facultad de universidad. Estamos en contacto.
Gracias. Hasta luego a todos.
Hasta luego.